Great. So here we are carrying on this conversation with grief and water, and I've got Megan. I've got Megan from Extinction Witness. I'm so delighted to have got to know you, actually. I feel a lot of heart connection. And you have read The Message of Water. You've got it in a few times. You read it, I believe. And now just going to give you the space to respond in your own way. And I believe you're also going to read a couple of poems of yours, which really looking forward to hearing again. Over to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you as well. Lovely to be here. Yeah, I feel the same, and I actually want to begin because I've had some time now to, as you say, to sink this in, and also to sink in some other conversations that we've had. And there was one piece from another conversation. You mentioned this challenge of, with so much suffering in the world, so much pain, how can I possibly feel joy? The most empathetic part of us wants to go, so if there's sadness, I be that sadness. How can I be happy when others are sad? Mm-hmm. This is something that I lived through as I first came to awareness of what's happening in the world. In the United States, as a child raised here, I was very sheltered from what's actually happening. The cost of the automobile. Mm-hmm. I knew hunger in the world from my youth. I was raised as a Quaker, and so my first role models were Mahatma Gandhi and the Peace Pilgrim, so I was raised in that, and at the same time very sheltered from what's actually happening until I got to the university. And even through service work, even working in service in the youth groups. Mm. So there's this sheltering, so when I came out and saw on my own, after kind of dealing with my own woundedness and retreating from that and wanting to escape from the whole bit because it's so painful, I fell into that I think a confusion with empathy and compassion, which is if someone else is unhappy, I have to be unhappy too. And there's a truth to that, because if someone else is unhappy, I am unhappy. Sure. Because we're one. Mm-hmm. That's also the message of water. With water between us, with breath between us, with breath being us and water us, there is no separation. And at the same time, the work of the work that heals, the grief work, actually brings us to that original vibration, which is the joy of being, which is kind of has been taken or lost or deprived in someone who has experienced, in an individual body who has experienced trauma. And we have that going on all around us. So the grieving with is our solidarity with that trauma. And as a witness to that, it is my responsibility to move that grief, to be in solidarity with that loss. But actually going to the vibration that is traumatized, to going to that depression, going to that feeling of the trauma itself, it's actually my responsibility to move that. And the grief work does that. The giving to the water does that. The releasing it does that. The pounding the ground, the screaming, the wailing. And this is why we do the practice, in my experience and my understanding, is to liberate ourselves back to that original vibration of joy and ultimately peace, but just the experience of gladness for being alive and together and in relationship, we're alive. So as we've discussed, that invitation is to go all the way to the sorrow, but not to stay there. But if I don't go all the way there, if I see someone else murdered, you know, or if I see someone else raped, or I hear of someone else raped, and I'm not going all the way to that feeling, to move that, to weep, to wail that out, then I'm holding the anger that is naturally inspired by seeing someone else hurt, mm-hmm. which is my self-hurt. Mm-hmm. If I hold that in my body, I become that, and I come out with that. And it can come out sideways in the same kind of aggression and violence and fear that perpetrated the harm at the beginning. Mm-hmm. So the work of the grief and the invitation of water, as I hear it, is to move that with and for and with each other. You know, to lift each other up, you know, and say, hey, we're here, you know, and we're alive still. And yes, this harm has been done. We're not denying the perpetration, and we're not becoming the perpetration either. We're refusing to become the perpetration by doing the grief work and the healing work and the trauma work. And for me, it's the poetry. So I'll read a couple poems. You know, it's for me, in bearing witness to this to genocide and ecocide, what is one and the same in my mind, is what I do. It's my spiritual practice, and it's an invitation for others to practice as well. And other artists are, yourself, you know, and so many others are coming to this, because what else do we do right now but be with it, you know, mm-hmm. to be with it. That's how I feel, and so many do. So it's a beautiful time in that way. We're just saying, oh, it's here. We're here. We're in love. You know, it's just being in love. So we're doing it. The poems actually, for me, transmute the anger. You know, they relieve me to joy. Mm. And I find if something comes through and a poem isn't written, you know, or some expression isn't made of that trauma that I'm experiencing secondhand, you know, personally yet secondhand, then I carry anger. Then I'm not able to be present and pleasant with those who I am meeting. Mm. You know, I'm absent in some way from the world. So the poetry, you know, for me, it's the poetry. So here are two poems. I'll just read them.
Yes, please.
Fire, Famine, and Flood. 3 independent mothers, you might call them virgins, sat at the round table. Freya asked softly, as she dripped tears into the spoon, how long will they last trading seed for gold? Lakshmi said, patience, my love. Eventually, they will come around. Kali had seen enough. She stood knocking her chair over and screaming as she smacked her hands on the table. Burn the forest. That will teach them. Freya and Lakshmi, knowing not to question Kali's command, set forth to do their part. Freya dried up barley fields, while Kali set fire to the water there. Lakshmi brought torrential rains to the coast, while Kali boiled the ocean's depths. All 3 of them distraught by the destruction. A mother will do anything to keep her child from running blind over the cliff. She will cripple him if she must. She thinks, if only he knew how much he is loved. If only he knew how much he is loved. If only he knew how much he is loved. Ooh. Do not think it will be death. Dark enough now. We have been here before. And the time is choosing whether to stay or go. Rise from the fall or crash and burn again. Do not think it will be death, that eternal liberation. Remember the suffering, all the lives spent waiting to die. And you are the difference.
Ooh.
So
Thank you.
One with what I have to say. We are water. So water speaks through us. The vibration of water as horns honk and engines. So it's just such a beautiful gift you're bringing. So I want to thank you for bringing this conversation forward, bringing the message forward, and inviting us all, to this, because it's tremendous. It's where it's where we are. We'll say it's not even where we're going. It's where we are and where we've always been. So being reminded. It's just being reminded of who we are fundamentally. This love and the mother's love. This is the invitation now, is just to feel loved where we weren't. So many children, human children, have missed their mothers because of how things have gone, with the fathers being preferred, and that's not benefited fathers or mothers or children, so we're healing from that, and the embraces of the mother now, and so it's a glad time. As painful as it is to see the consequences of what's been, we also have this consequence of holding tight to who we know we are. So, yeah.
Megan, listening to you this time, I really recognize what being alive is. It's like, this is it. You are it. You are what it is to be fully alive, with the courage of going to every depth and fall and rise and fall and rise. And I really thank you for offering that. And whoever's listening, I pray that this really touches and supports you in your own journey of awakening and remembering what it is to be human being in this time. And I'm starting to get a sense of why water is bringing us all together. Because she is. This message is her gathering us. I'm just following. I'm not really sure what I'm doing. I'm following an impulse, following an impulse, following an impulse. And you profoundly touched me. Really grateful. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Is there anything else, Megan, that you would like to say in response to that message? Anything at all?
I believe I've said everything in response to the message, that the invitation is to come home to love.
Yeah.
And I want to say thanks to my mother and to all mothers who have, stood in their ground to be ourselves. So my mother invited me to scream into a pillow. She began her own healing work, and that's how I began my healing work, is because she stepped in to that.
Wow.
And other mothers I've had in my life, who have stepped into their healing and thus permitted me, open the door for me to step into, and all women to step into our healing, and to remember who we are. So just infinite gratitude. It's possible for me to be alive because I said yes to life, so.
Well, thank you to your mother then, very much.
She's sweet.
This is one of many, I'm sure, many conversations and many, hopefully, alliances and collaboration. Yeah.
I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you. Much love from the river Dart here, and water that was running through her, which probably is on your land now, having traveled through the clouds and fallen on your land. And we will speak very soon.
And much love from the Yellowstone River here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.